The feminine principle is form, movement itself. It's the manifested expression of consciousness in the field of movement, energy, and creation. If the masculine is the witness, then the feminine is everything that is witnessed. The feminine wants to be seen, to be witnessed. Now, this is, we could say, the metaphysical layer of the metaphysical layer of the feminine principle. However, when this principle descends down into the more functional layer, the functional operational form, this is where we get the 4 pillars of the feminine. These 4 pillars of the feminine, in which the feminine principle plays around in, are receptivity, expression, flow, and radiance. You will notice that they are all dynamic in nature, and that is because they follow from their pole. And as we stated in the beginning, the principle, the feminine pole, is in essence, on the metaphysical, at its highest abstraction, it's a movement principle. It's energy, form, content. Therefore, it follows that then when this abstraction takes more concrete expression, its pillars are going to be dynamic as well, to receive, to express, to flow, and to radiate. Now let's zoom in on each particular pillar and come up with a couple of examples of healthy expressions of these pillars in humans, in ourselves. So first we have receptivity, and a healthy expression of this trait is the ability, the capacity to be open, to be vulnerable, to receive, to be open in order to receive with discernment, and be open to receive and not lose yourself in the experience of that reception. So it has all sorts of caveats. Be vulnerable, but take a look, be discern. Receive, but don't lose yourself. But it is a healthy expression. Taste, look, but don't touch. Touch, don't taste. Taste, don't swallow. Let's now zoom in on the next pillar, expression. And mind you, these pillars, they follow from each other. They are connected. So when you receive, of course, you can now express that, what you receive. And then getting momentum, it flows, and then ultimately culminates in magnetism, in radiance, a form of magnetism. So now let's take a look at a healthy expression of the expression pillar, and that would be honest communication. To communicate, to express yourself, and doing so in a principled manner without cutting yourself off, and being honest at the same time. And this can be verbal communication or creative expression. Next, we have flow. Flowing is basically what you express, getting some kind of rhythm, some kind of momentum. And a healthy expression of this trait in us would be, for example, the ability to because you are flowing, it will require the expression to pause and to continue. And that pause, play, pause, play, pause, play, that requires, in lived life experience, that requires trust in yourself, in others, in life. It requires trust to gain that ability to flow, that momentum, not just expressing one time very powerfully and maybe getting good feedback, but then when you don't have good feedback, to shut off and stop flowing. No, to continuously flowing, for this pillar of the feminine to be alive and healthy, it requires trust. And finally, we have radiance, the culmination of all of this energy of the feminine going through these pillars. It culminates in radiance. And this will be healthy expressed as a kind of natural magnetism. Presence without tension. Presence without needing to prove anything. It's naturally attractive and magnetic. So these are some healthy expressions, examples of how these pillars of the feminine express. Now let's look into negative or unhealthy expressions of the same pillars, distortions created by, enhanced by our shadows, distortions of these pillars. Let's go through a few examples. Now, when we are talking about unhealthy expressions on the feminine side, on the feminine pole, we are always talking about either a flood or a freeze. The distortions on both masculine and feminine poles are always a over or under expression of their pillar, of a specific pillar. And in the case of the feminine, because it is a dynamic principle and its pillars are all dynamic, as we already established before, that means that their distortion will be always either a flood or a freeze of that pillar, an over or under expression of that pillar. So, as an example, receptivity, if it floods, that's having no boundaries, receiving everything from everywhere, not discerning. If it freezes, then that is a kind of numbness, a shutdown, to not receive anything, to be kind of dead, numb. Now, expression, when it floods, that is sharing too much, that is drama creation. And when it freezes, that is another form of disconnection. It's repression, to become emotional disconnected. Now, flow, when it floods, when it's inflated, when this trait is over expressed, this is a kind of, this is just chaotic. This is a kind of loss of incoherence, just pure chaos. And when it stagnates, when it collapses, when it freezes, that is a kind of stagnation, not flowing anything. So it's a kind of rigidity. And finally, radiance, when it's overexpressed, when it floods, that is a kind of radiance just for the sake of being radiant, a kind of seductive manipulation or attention seeking, performative attention seeking, validation seeking. And when it collapses, when it freezes, radiance is just insecurity, not wanting to be seen, not wanting to radiate at all, wanting to shut down and not be seen. So these are the four pillars of the feminine principle, how the feminine, the form, the purest energy, movement, nature descends down in operational form and in human expression. A few examples of healthy and unhealthy expressions of that. And in future, we will go deeper on how to restore balance for these pillars, both on the feminine and the masculine side. And I'll see you then. Be well.